The manga starts with a crazy guy scribbling the same phrase over and over again. He was fully focused on the things that he wanted to remind himself, and as we zoom out, we see dozens of posters of politicians, and our main protagonist was still writing down something. As he reads the blogs, messages, and tweets of the people who are sick and tired of the politicians' useless chatter and false promises, he cries out how this country is done for. Now, although these things don't bother any normal human, on the other hand, Shintaro was training for something so big that the entire nation would shake. As he flexed his very fit and athletic body, he practiced the same thrust and slash attacks over and over again. As we get this introduction, Shintaro himself tells us about how his life is just worthless. From the start he had bad education, low grades, low income, and low class. People can surely consider him as the bottom of the barrel, that's how deep he has sunk. Although this is his 39th year being alive, he works at a low-paying job that everyone hates and lives in a shabby apartment with nothing to his name. As he reminds himself to never die like this, day after day his anxiety is growing, and he is becoming restless. His life is done for, and there is nothing that he can do at this level. He can't take a test and apply for a better job or do anything else. But there is one thing that motivates him more than anything. He has a plan to eradicate the Great Kodan Party, which is run by the Prime Minister. They are the most powerful and influential humans to ever live in this era. Shintaro has been training forever to kill all of them, and finally, the time is here for him to start moving. In 1 week, he would strike, and as he was thinking all of this, from the side, he heard a loud noise from the other side of the apartment. Now he was in the middle of something very important, but the moment and glory that he was building just died, and he couldn't believe that he had been enduring this. Ever since a huge family moved near him, it has been noisy ever since. As his endurance finally snaps, he spins around and kicks the wall with everything that he had, and exclaims a big insult. Now as he did this, there was a pin-drop silence, but that didn't last long. All of a sudden, he hears his doorbell go off, and as he checks it out, he sees a woman, also in her 30s or 40s, glaring at him with a hateful look. She points her finger at his face and asks him if he has any problem and would like to throw hands with her. In an instant, she grabs onto his collar and screams at him that she has 8 kids that she takes care of, and Shintaro immediately folds. He tells her that he doesn't want to fight. She screams and asks him if he has a problem with her kids being up despite it being only 10, and adds about how it is nearly impossible to raise them all without any financial aid, and she is doing all of this in a declining country. As she screams, she keeps calling him an old fart, and as she flips him off, she threatens him to never do that again or she would call some gangster she knows. As silence filled him, he was angry, but he showed all of that after she left. With a slight smirk, he reflects on how she is a toxic, or rather a bad parent who would ruin everything. He gets back to his apartment, and cries out to the luck of the kids that she is taking care of, and was sure that they would be as miserable as they can get, and suddenly, he remembers his parents who would take their sweet time to take out their frustration and anger on him when he was a little boy. As a painful flashback shakes his core, his father was yelling at him for crying and it also looked like he was lodging his fist in his face. He sips on the last can of the beer and after chugging it all down, he collects himself and laughs about how this country had made him the villain that he is, and he lights up a smoke for himself, and in the next second, he shouts in joy and glory, telling himself that the world will surely change and he would deliver this nation. As he say this, from the side someone burst open a bag of chips, and he glanced back to see a cute girl standing near a wall. As he looks, she starts to eat the chips, and a loud crunch filled the whole room. He wondered just how in the God's good green earth she teleported there, and when he checked the hole near the area he kicked, it was clear that it did the trick, and now this is the result. As the little girl started to explain about her quest to sneak into his room, she explained everything, and she ended up also seeing all of his homemade weapons, which frankly range from guns to all sorts of daily killing weapons. As she asks him with a smiling face, Shintaro, on the other hand, was panicking, and the secret path he worked so hard for is about to crumble because of a little kid. He was sure to not make any mistakes, and as he did something to her, The next day, he was chilling in the park, and he swiftly hands over the little kid a bag full of something. He told her how he did whatever she asked him to do, and the girl checked the bag and exclaimed about how this was all full of snacks. Without any other word, she dashed, and we finally see what happened yesterday. Shintaro had to beg the little girl over and over again, and cried out to her to not tell her mother about the things that she had just seen. Now the little kid was smart, and she ended up striking a deal with him, and instructed him to buy her snacks, and every day she would keep this a secret. Now deep down he hated this deal more than anything, and in the first place, no one in their right mind would like to take care of anyone's kids. He reminds himself that now is not the time to think about anything else, and in a week he would need to strike no matter what. Now the next day, the little kid's request grew, and she told him to buy snacks for her siblings as well. As he hears this, he first tries to process the things that she was spewing, and she, on the other hand, starts to list the names of her siblings one by one. Altogether, she requested him to bring her snacks for 5 people. He was obviously frustrated and tells her about how her mother would find out about this and would surely give them a hard time, and with a confident voice she told him that their mother is never home in the first place. As his eyes widen to hear this, he asks about how they survive through the day, and if they even eat dinner. And she replies that all of them just endure their hunger until morning, and that's when they eat something that their mother gives them. That day, something was seriously wrong with him. As he rode his super loud scooter, he questioned if what he was doing right now was really that important, and as he was thinking this, from the side, a car crossed him, and inside, the driver was being embraced by someone. As he looks, he sees the woman of the kids kissing a man, on the road and in public. He mocked her about the things that she enjoyed and did while her kids were starving at home. This made him even more angry, and he was sure that people like her just give birth to children and leave them to survive on their own. Later, he gets back home, and the little girl was waiting for him. He gives her the bag and gently lets her know that snacks would never fill you up. She had asked him for snacks, but he ended up buying them all meals. And without any pauses or words, she sneaks into her hole, and as he sits down, he couldn't let go of the things that he saw. Their mother was really fooling around with some random dude, and he is here feeding her children. He questions about his motivation, and from the wall, he started to hear the kids thanking heavens for the food. In just a few seconds, all the kids on the other side finally got the dinner that they must have wished for over and over again, and as he sat there like a broken man, he kept hearing the little innocent kids feasting on the food. For him, these voices were just background noise, and he was pushed to the point that these voices were something that he didn't need in his life. Yotsuba calls out to him, and as she sneaks into his room one more time, she hands him the bag full of trash, and she adds about how they don't want their mother to find out about the feeding part. As he grabs this, she goes back to her cave and brings out something. She gives him a hamburger, and tells him that this is for him. He tells her to just eat it, and she shakes her head. With a gentle and thankful voice, she lets him know that he is her favorite person, and this is just a thanking gift for him. He looks at her for some time and grabs it while thanking her. As she leaves, he couldn't believe why she would want to give him the food back. As she leaves with smiles, he kept staring at the burger. He places it near his homemade gun that he was planning on using in a week, and after breaking his arrogance, he decided to just eat it all. As he bit into the burger, he cried out how kids are actually the most naive, stupid creatures, and especially the poor ones. He reminds himself that he is a dumb human himself, and he is overjoyed to receive something that he paid for. He cries about how her mother has no money, and that is why these kids have no food and they are poor. As he was saying all of this, we also get a cold view of the harsh environment that Yotsuba was living in, and as he bites into that burger, he trembles and reminds himself that these kids have nothing to eat. Tears began to overflow from his eyes. He tears up and reflects on how if he has nothing in his life, he can't give anything to anyone. For the next 5 days he kept feeding her kids. Finally, the day of action came, and he geared himself for the grand plan. He completely covered himself from top to bottom, and made sure that he wore a mask and also carried all the deadly weapons that he crafted. He also blocked the hole that Yotsuba would climb from, and over on his wall were all the leaders that he was after. With rage boiling from within him, he was ready to march on a losing battle that only he was going to fight. Today was going to be the death anniversary for all of them. However, just as he was about to open the door, from the side, he started to hear Yotsuba's mother go crazy. She started to scream at someone and shouts at him to let go of her. As she kept on fighting someone, instantly, a man replies to her and tells her that this situation is all because of her debt. Now he was sure that she had no man living over, and in the first place, this seemed more like a serious thing. He decided to check up on her, and as he opened her door, he saw that woman sitting there like a broken soul, who had just lost everything. He enters, and she exclaims at him and questions about what he is looking at. He asks what happened, and she shakes him off, but clearly things were not good, as all her kids were crying at the top of their lungs. He asks her one more time, and she spins around, and blood was coming out of her mouth and nose. And with a weak voice she mutters to him and lets him know that her kid was taken. He immediately rushes outside to check, and sure enough, a black car was taking away Yotsuba. With a terrified look in her eyes, she tells him about the loan that she has and how the Yakuza has been threatening her, and finally they took away her daughter as repayment. Now as he hears this, something just goes off in him. He tells her to just call the cops, and she replies by telling him that she can't do this, and even if she did, they would just end up killing her. She adds that the Kakabo group has already destroyed the house of one of her friends, and they are not something that the police can stop. He shakes her off and yells at her, telling her that she can't just leave her daughter like this. She gets up and shouts back at him, and tells him that she doesn't know what she can do. With a cracking and hopeless voice, she replies and tells him that she is at her limit, and has tried everything, but everything failed. She shares that every day she has been selling her body and doing every work possible to pay back the debt and burden of her family, but all of that is not enough. She cries about how no matter how much she sacrifices her body, the debt would never go away. She begins to wail and tells him that she is at her limit and can't hold on anymore. As her kids start to comfort her, she tells him to help her. Now Shintaro thinks about something, and in the next instant, he puts his mask back on and remembers that today is the day that he would lash out at anything. At a different place, dozens of Yakuza members were sitting in a circle, and Yotsuba herself was sitting just near them and had a bag over her head. Their boss was checking a paper of some sort, and up closer, he verified that they have Yotsuba, the daughter of Hiroki. As they confirmed it, they dragged her to a room. One of the guys adds and tells his boss about the other siblings, and with evil smiles, they laugh and wonder if they should just kidnap the kids and sell them for more money. As they laughed, they started to take turns and added about how one of the Yakuza members would take the girl and would do his best with her. Just outside the door, Shintaro confirmed that 8 men were inside. As Shintaro sees this, he became hesitant for a minute and was sure that everyone had weapons and would surely give him hell if he were to mess up at anything. But with a cold voice, he reminds himself that he doesn't care anymore. As he lodged a knife inside a man's eye, he had already infiltrated their base. He knew he couldn't just go away from here. Someone was waiting to be saved. He throws the body inside the room, and all of the members just panicked to see this. As he made his way inside the room, all of them wondered if this was a raid, and Shintaro grabbed his homemade gun and loaded it with confidence. As he pointed it toward the guys, the boss of the group knew something was off and he told everyone to grab their guns. But just as he was about to say this, Shintaro fired at them, and the bullets immediately did their job. As 2 of the guys fell down after getting hit in the head, all of them realized that their lives were in danger. They brought out their guns and began shooting at him, but Shintaro already had a shield right near him. He picked up the guy from earlier and shielded himself from the bullets, and as he made his way closer, he did something even more cruel. As he closed his distance with one of the guys, he extended his hand and in the next second, he stabbed him several times over and over. After killing him, he threw the knife towards someone, and it perfectly hit his head, and he didn't even have the time to react. Doing all of this, he noticed that he was dead calm and had no overthinking problem. As he made his way closer to the last remaining guy, he punched him right in the mouth, and as the boss exclaimed at him, Shintaro took 30 seconds to kill 7 people. The boss asked him if he was a pro or anything, and he began to pressure him. With a cold gaze, he told him that he would die now. Shintaro saw something and pointed out that he would surely miss his target, since he doesn't have a pinky. He confidently grabbed one of the guys that he downed and told him about how the recoil of the gun would make him miss the target. He pulled out his knife and gave him a deadly glare and spewed about how even though it was his first time, he knew why the boss would fail. Now the boss started to sweat heavily, and despite that, he shot at him but missed, and Shintaro himself dodged it with skill, and in the next second, he easily defeated him with a stroke of his knife. After doing this, Shintaro had finally learned about his hidden talent, and he knew for sure that he was a genius killer. As the boss was defeated, he began to laugh and burst out a great laugh at his actions and skills. All his life, he was filled by a void, but now he has finally found something that he excels in. As he looked at his hands, he froze for a minute, and instantly a dark abyss began to surround him. From the side, Yotsuba called out to him, and he got close to her and untied her, and she immediately hugged him. She was shaking heavily, and as he comforted her, he told her that he would not let anything harm her. He removed the bag on her head, and from inside, Yotsuba was crying like never before and thanked him. Just seeing this, he himself began to tear up, and he hugged her tight. For a minute, he was about to lose everything, but now he finally did something in his life that he could look back at and remember. As they both made their way outside, he set off an explosive and made sure to burn everything there. That day a major office of the Kakubo group was burned down, and everything inside was gone. The next day, there was a pretty big commotion in the place that Shintaro burned down, so much so that several detectives and special forces were checking every single detail. 2 mysterious-looking men forcefully entered the place, and as they entered, the detective from the back kept shouting at them, and his supervisor finally reminded him to relax and not bother them anymore. He told the junior to not mess with the Kakubo group and their private investigation. These 2 men were there to check up on their group members. They sat down near a pile of unrecognizable wreckage, and one of them pinched some of it, and then grabbed a big piece of it, and ate it all. As the people near them noticed their barbaric actions, that man kept chewing on it, and after some time, he swallowed the rest and spit out all the bullets that Shintaro used in his gun. He showed that to his partner, and as he checked it all, he confirmed that these were silver bullets, and they were surely not professional bullets. He confirmed that the gun was homemade and there were no cartridges present here. Since he noticed a pattern, he was sure that the person who did all of this was using a homemade gun. Now the identity of Shintaro was exposed. As they rode back home, Shintaro's life as a vigilante had just begun. As they get back to their place, they stop by Hiroki's apartment, and from the inside she comes rushing outside. After seeing her daughter with him, she couldn't believe her eyes. With a weak voice, Yotsuba looks up and mutters to her mother that she is back, and in the next instant, she hugs her tight. She begins to apologize for everything that happened to her, and apologizes to her for being a weak mother. As she hugged her tight, she smells her mother and realizes that she is back to normal and finally safe, and immediately she begins to cry from all the hell that she just went through. As her siblings also come closer to them, they all embraced each other, and Shintaro stands right next to them. As he leaves, Hiroki from the back ends up calling out to him, and for a minute, she was actively trying to force out some sentence, and asks about how he was able to do all of this. She questions if he has some connection or did all of this through money, and he doesn't reply to her. But as she looks at him closely, she sees that he has bloodstains on his clothes, and she herself knew that he went all the way with them. With a weak voice, he lets her know that no matter what she thinks of him, she should move out of the place, and there is not enough time to do so. He adds that the Kakubo group already has her address, and it's a matter of time before they kidnap her children again. As she processes this, she gets into beast mode again and screams at him for recommending such an idea. She asks and questions him about the next place that they would go to and adds about how they have nothing in the first place and would surely die in the streets. He kept listening to this and replies to all her things and shares that this is not the time to think about money, and right now she should just prioritize her children above all and fulfill her duty as their mother. After saying this, he closes the door on her, and she goes into berserk mode again and began to shout at the top of her lungs. Now as he gets inside his home, he immediately takes off his jacket and begins to undress himself. He packs all of his clothes and starts to clean himself. Unlike her, he was ready to just take all the essentials and leave this place. He was sure that the bad guys would never stop, and before they could find him, they need to move out as soon as possible. He did everything in a hurry and was sure that if he were to slow down, all things would go south for him. He makes his way to the main room, and there he finds his final letter and everything that he had left behind. Now he left that place to never return, but since circumstances forced him to come back, he sees what he left behind for anyone who wanted to find him. As he checks the letter, he decides to just sit down, and he lights up a smoke for himself. He collects himself and finally he lets his thoughts go wild. His plan was to yesterday sneak into the Congress meeting and kill all the leaders there, and then end everything, but since it failed, he now has the Yakuza on his back. As he looks at the paper that he would write over and over on, he confirms that he failed, but questions on why the cigarette taste was magnificent, after doing the impossible. Doing all of this has made him feel fulfilled for once in his life. He never in his life ventured outside his boundaries, but this time he did something, and that was not just for himself but for others. Also, that night he didn't just attack them and win, he learned about his power, his skill, and his strength. Whatever he did, he was able to analyze everything and had calculated moves that impacted everything that he did. That day his triumph tasted more refreshing than anything. This room of his was the place where he harnessed his skills, practiced everything hundreds and thousands of times to the point that he became too good at it. This was the sense of achievement that he looked for all his life. This pleasure of life was missing from his existence, and he has found it. He questions himself if killing and assassination was something that he was made for, but he looks to his side and notices that the hole that he covered was already broken, and it seems like Yatsuba sneaked in. He gets up and tosses his cigarette in the toilet, and wears some clothes, but now his biggest worry is Yatsuba and their family. As he notices her sitting, he looks at her and approaches her. She had a grim look on her face, and he realizes that yesterday was something that shook her from her core. He sits down and asks if she ate anything, and she shakes her head. He asks if he can give her anything, and she replies by telling him that she is not hungry. With a weak voice, she asks if those men would come for her again, and asks if they would also come for her siblings. As she asks this, she begins to cry, and he comforts her. With a gentle voice, he lets her know that he would surely protect all of them, and no harm would come their way. He lets her know that no matter who he faces, he would surely not let them come closer to her or her family. 2 days later, we see a cat out in the street, and a car approaches it. Now any sane human would stomp on their brake, but these pieces of trash just keep speeding, and after stopping the car, he opens the door and steps on the helpless animal and makes his way inside. As the two trash men glance over the building where Yatsuba and Shintaro reside, they confirm that they live here. As part 1 ends later in the series, all hell breaks loose, and an intense fight takes place between Shintaro and the guests, but things become dark as Shintaro loses.